Humanity had always known what it meant to stand alone. Across millennia of survival, struggle had shaped its bones, conflict had sharpened its will, and the vast quiet of the cosmos had forced it to confront the truth of its own insignificance. Yet no generation felt that truth more sharply than those who witnessed the night the High Galactic Council delivered its decree, a ruling that would cast the entire human species beyond the reach of the civilized stars. It would be remembered as the Sundering Edict, a judgment that echoed through every habitat corridor, mining platform, scattered colony dome, and orbital settlement built by human hands. It was the moment an entire civilization was told that it did not belong. The Council's verdict arrived without warning, carried by encrypted beacon across the major space lanes. Humanity had expected sanctions, perhaps tighter restrictions or trade suffocation, but nothing so absolute. The edict declared that humanity's unpredictable evolutionary trajectory rendered them a destabilizing force unfit for continued integration within the political fabric of the galaxy. They would be relegated to the outer rim, an ungoverned frontier beyond the long arm of the Council's law, a region spoken of only in hushed rumor and cartographic warning markers. It was the place where dying empires faded, where things older than Council memory prowled the debris fields of forgotten wars, and where no species with a sense of self-preservation dared stake its future. For every other species, this exile would have been a death sentence. For humanity, it ignited something ancient. In the earliest days after the edict, grief settled over the species like a silent fog, but beneath that grief, deeper currents stirred, old instincts, ancestral sparks inherited from a lineage that had long mastered adversity rather than succumbed to it. Humanity had been forged beneath crushing glaciers, volcanic ash, barren plains, and cosmic indifference. Its roots were coiled around hardship. Its branches reached toward unknown skies. And as the shock of betrayal spread through its far-flung colonies, something extraordinary took shape. At first, there was only stillness. Then came motion. From Earth's scarred orbital ring to the scattered frontier stations that dotted the edge of mapped space, the species began to move in a quiet, relentless tide. Entire populations uprooted, drifting like fleets of wandering stars toward the outer rim. They traveled in vessels patched together by necessity, in arc ships fueled by hope, in retrofitted haulers humming with defiance. They journeyed past the last Council checkpoints, beyond the safe corridors, into the cold and unmapped dark, carrying with them everything the galaxy had chosen to cast aside. In those early weeks, fear was a constant companion. The Rim had earned its reputation through centuries of silence and disappearance. Ships went in and never emerged. Ancient sensor logs recorded impossible gravitational distortions, derelict megastructures large enough to eclipse suns, and biological signatures with no evolutionary logic. Entire regions appeared to swallow light. Even radiation behaved strangely there, bending in patterns that mimicked dormant intelligence. Yet humanity pressed onward. What the Council interpreted as recklessness was something else entirely, an instinctive understanding that a cornered species must evolve or die. Humanity had been shoved into the largest corner imaginable, and in that isolation, it rediscovered a strength it had nearly forgotten. The first human fleets crossed the threshold of the Rim with caution, illumination drones spreading ahead like luminous pollen drifting through endless night. Navigational systems trembled under the strain of unknown gravitational harmonics. Subspace engines flickered against unseen turbulence. Each vessel shuddered as if brushing against the remnants of civilizations older than memory. But the humans adapted quickly. When the rim's radiation disrupted sensors, humanity invented new detection arrays based on neutrino drift and quantum echo mapping. When spatial anomalies bent spacetime like molten glass, human engineers recalibrated drive coils to read the distortions as navigational cues. When dead regions of silence swallowed ordinary signals, humanity repurposed the interference itself, turning noise into a primitive form of communication. This was the first sign that the rim, hostile though it appeared, could be mastered, not through brute force, but through the uniquely human blend of intuition, creativity, and stubborn refusal to accept what others had deemed impossible. The Council had sent them to the edge of the galaxy, expecting them to fracture. Instead, humanity discovered the threshold of its own ascension. As the fleet spread deeper into the rim, clusters of habitable zones emerged, rare pockets of stability that suggested the region had once been a thriving sphere of ancient power. Fragments of colossal ringworks drifted in the void, their broken segments still humming with dormant energy. Planetary remnants bore scars carved by weapons humanity had no names for. The rim was not empty, it was a graveyard of fallen titans. And graveyards, humanity learned, were full of secrets. Within weeks of settling their first provisional anchor sites, human survey teams uncovered relics unlike any ever catalogued by the Council. These were not mere ruins. They were glimpses into technologies that defied known physics, constructs built by hands both precise and unfathomable, structures that responded to touch with soft, harmonic resonance, materials stronger than any alloy humanity had forged, energy signatures that behaved like living organisms. The Council had cast humanity into a wasteland. But the wasteland was rich. In this frontier, framed by silence and the faint glow of dying stars, humanity took its first steps into a destiny no species had foreseen. They approached each discovery with a mixture of reverence and bold experimentation. They dismantled, reverse-engineered, reconstructed, and reimagined. They combined human innovation with the forgotten brilliance of extinct civilizations. What emerged from this fusion was unlike anything humanity had built before. Ships that could glide across subspace currents like predators of the void. Weapons powered not by fuel but by resonant harmonics. And defensive fields woven from energy patterns that mimicked instinct and adaptation. As humanity unlocked each ancient secret, the species began to transform. Word of these developments did not reach the Council. Out here, humanity was alone. Out here, it was free from oversight, restriction, and judgment. Free from the quiet fear that the galaxy might always see it as dangerous and unpredictable. Out here, humanity was allowed, perhaps for the first time, to grow without limit. And the rim seemed almost to welcome them. What others had interpreted as hostility, humanity began to see as challenge. Where others saw chaos, humanity found pattern. Where others sensed death, humanity perceived potential. The rim was not a dead zone, it was a gauntlet, a test awaiting a species capable of rising to its demands. It was a crucible for transformation, and humanity entered it with determination burning brighter than any star. Yet the story of humanity's rise did not unfold without cost. Venturing into the deeper sectors of the rim carried dangers no analysis could predict. Some ships vanished without a trace, swallowed by invisible phenomena or lured into gravitational traps shaped like cosmic mirages. Explorers encountered remnants of biological constructs grown for war, drifting like dormant leviathans between asteroids. Strange energies whispered along the hulls of passing vessels, vibrating with cryptic, residual intelligence. Some scientists speculated that the rim itself was alive, that its ancient systems still operated on instinct, reacting to intruders as a slumbering creature responds to a dream. Through these trials, humanity's unity solidified. Each loss burned into the collective consciousness until grief became fuel and fear hardened into commitment. The species refused to retreat, refused to surrender to despair or uncertainty. The betrayal of the Council had severed the last threads tying humanity to old expectations. In the freedom of exile, the species found clarity. They were not here by choice. They were here because the galaxy had underestimated them. And now they would become something the galaxy could no longer ignore. As humanity's settlements expanded, first in scattered outposts, then in fortified arcs across neighboring systems, a strange equilibrium settled upon the frontier. The rim no longer felt like an execution ground. It felt like territory waiting to be claimed. It felt like power, raw and unshaped. It felt like destiny, humming beneath every asteroid and echoing through every quantum field. Within months, human infrastructure flourished across a region no species had ever fully penetrated. Terraforming engines reshaped cracked worlds. Energy harvesters latched onto dormant constructs to siphon ancient power. Mining rigs extracted exotic elements capable of reinforcing alloys to nearly indestructible density. Human ingenuity wove together pieces of the forgotten and the familiar until a new technological identity emerged, one uniquely adapted to the rim's impossible demands. Yet beneath this rising triumph, one truth remained unspoken. Humanity was no longer merely surviving the frontier. It was mastering it. The Council had feared humanity's potential. They had feared a species with limitless adaptability and an unsettling tendency to transform threat into opportunity. Their solution had been exile. Yet exile had achieved the opposite of what they intended. It had unshackled humanity from political restraint and placed it at the doorstep of the most potent region in the galaxy. And humanity had stepped through that door armed with every strength the Council had feared. Soon, the Rim was no longer a place of whispered legends. It was the crucible of a rising power. A power taking shape in secrecy, forged by betrayal, driven by unity, and fueled by a flame no ruling body could extinguish. Humanity stood on the threshold of something vast. The galaxy had cast them aside. But humans had seized the outer rim. And now, for the first time in recorded history, they held the means to reshape their place in the cosmos, not as outcasts, not as threats, but as a force whose ascendance was no longer a matter of speculation. It was a matter of inevitability. The Council simply did not know it yet. The rim knew. Humanity knew. And soon the galaxy would learn. The outer rim did not announce its dangers. It revealed them slowly, like a vast and ancient predator testing the resolve of an unexpected challenger. Humanity had taken its first steps across its fractured landscapes and spectral voids, unaware that these steps would ignite a chain of events destined to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. In those early months, the species believed it was merely settling new ground. In truth, it was awakening something buried beneath cosmic dust and forgotten empires. Human expansion across the rim continued with a pace that startled even the most optimistic planners. Entire star systems became hubs of human engineering, lit by the glow of repurposed megastructures and resonant field reactors. The rim, once feared as a place where civilizations vanished, began to pulse with the unmistakable signature of human progress. Yet beneath every success, tension simmered, an unspoken understanding that the frontier was not empty. Something waited within the deeper reaches, beyond the gravitational scars and broken star forges. Humanity sensed it in the tremors of subspace, in the uneasy resonance of the relics they recovered, in the subtle distortions that rippled across quantum communication lines. The rim seemed to breathe, slow and hollow, as though waking from eons of slumber. It was in this atmosphere of quiet triumph and rising unease that humanity began its next great leap. The species had long excelled at turning adversity into invention, at finding purpose in struggle. Betrayal by the Council had only intensified this instinct. The edict that cast humanity aside continued to echo in the collective mind of the species, not as a wound, but as a call to surpass every limitation once imposed upon them. The rim had become their proving ground, and they intended to master it. To do so, humanity initiated the Frontier Integration Program, an unprecedented movement to unify the disparate discoveries, technologies, and ruins scattered across the rim into a cohesive framework. The program aimed not simply to understand the rim, but to synchronize with it. Teams of engineers, physicists, cognitive scientists, and adaptive mind specialists worked tirelessly across floating research arcs and planetary labs carved into the bones of ancient architecture. The pace of discovery was overwhelming, yet humanity absorbed it with an appetite bordering on hunger. The first major breakthrough came from the luminous shards, crystalline relics found embedded in derelict stations that drifted like ghostly chandeliers across shattered orbits. These shards emitted a resonance unlike any known energy pattern, fluctuating in harmony with neural frequencies. When integrated into human-built systems, they amplified intuition-based interfaces, allowing pilots to control ships through instinctive thought patterns. The shards responded to emotion, memory, and determination, forging a symbiotic bond between human intent and machine performance. In the Council's territories, such technology would have been deemed unstable, dangerous, even heretical. In the Rim, it became humanity's signature. Another breakthrough emerged from the Obsidian Maw, an anomaly once feared for swallowing entire vessels in silent gravitational collapse. Human researchers studied it not as a threat, but as a mystery waiting to be unraveled. By deploying quantum thread beacons into its depths, they discovered that the Maw was not a void, but a collapsed transit node of an ancient hyperlane system. When stabilized, it revealed a navigational structure that allowed faster-than-light movement across impossible distances. Humanity had, through audacity alone, reclaimed a fragment of long-lost cosmic infrastructure. With each triumph, humanity's confidence grew, but so too did the Rim's response. Strange disturbances flared across unmapped sectors. Energy signatures once dormant awakened in jagged pulses. Astrobiological remnants stirred as if sensing an intruding presence. Deep field sensors captured glimpses of constructs drifting at the very edge of detection, massive silhouettes shaped by forgotten design philosophy. Humanity's ascent was no longer unnoticed. The Rim had begun to watch them. Still, the species pushed forward. Human settlements transformed from provisional outposts into thriving citadels of innovation. The largest of these, the Arc Bastions, became symbols of a civilization reborn. They hung in orbit like glittering crowns, each one a fusion of human architecture and ancient Rim technology. Their defensive fields pulsed in rhythmic harmony with the cosmic environment, adapting to fluctuating anomalies with fluid precision. As the bastions grew, a new kind of human emerged, one shaped not by Earth, nor by the disciplined confines of Council space, but by the wild freedom of the Rim. These were the Pathfinders, individuals whose instincts adapted to the strange patterns of the frontier. They navigated gravitational tides the way ancient sailors read ocean currents. They sensed energy distortions before sensors detected them. Their minds aligned with the resonance of the luminous shards, forming the first generation capable of merging human intuition with relic-based systems. Alongside them, humanity's military power evolved. No longer bound by council treaties or interspecies expectations, human strategists forged doctrines tailored to the unpredictability of the Rim. Fleets developed new formations based on fluid, adaptive movement. Strike vessels were designed to split into autonomous shards mid-flight, becoming swarm-like extensions of their pilots' will. Resonant weaponry emerged, armaments that disrupted enemy systems using harmonic interference rather than kinetic impact. Defense grids pulsed with living energy, flexing like muscle tissue rather than rigid steel. These advancements were not mere improvements. They were revolutions. The Council, had it been aware, would have panicked, but humanity remained silent. The Rim was a crucible, and the species intended to complete its metamorphosis before revealing the full scope of what Exile had forged. Still, shadows lingered at the edges of progress. Strange artifacts recovered from deeper ruins carried warnings etched in languages humanity could not translate. Holographic projections flickered with the faint outlines of extinct species fleeing an unseen threat. Data caches, fragmented by time, whispered of a war beyond comprehension, one not fought between civilizations, but between sentience and something that opposed the very concept of life. The more humanity uncovered, the more it sensed that the Rim had not been abandoned voluntarily. Something had driven its ancient inhabitants to extinction, and that something might still remain. Unsettling discoveries accumulated like dust on forgotten tombs. Biological scans revealed pockets of dormant, engineered organisms waiting for triggers lost to time. Energy patterns behaved like vestigial neural networks, responding faintly to human presence. The Rim was not simply old, it was wounded. It bore scars from a conflict no historical archive had preserved. Yet even these revelations did not deter humanity. They only strengthened its resolve. Every clue hinted at potential dangers greater than anything the Council had ever prepared for, and humanity, shaped by adversity, did not shy from threat. Instead, the species approached these mysteries with the rigor of scientists, the caution of explorers, and the determination of survivors. The true turning point came when pathfinders uncovered a colossal structure half buried within the drifting remains of a disintegrated moon. The structure resembled a vast, petrified heart, its surface ridged with channels that pulsed faintly with dormant energy. It was identified as a nexus core, an interface designed to coordinate rim-wide systems. When humanity activated it, ancient infrastructure stirred across multiple sectors. Dormant hyperlanes blinked to life. Fractured shield arrays reformed at skeletal star fortresses. Planetary processors hummed with soft luminescence. The rim was waking, and humanity realized it was no longer merely navigating the frontier. It was integrating with it. The Nexus core revealed a lattice of interconnected systems capable of reshaping entire regions of space. It was technology that bordered on godlike, representing the zenith of a civilization that had vanished without leaving even a name behind. The implications were staggering. With mastery of even a fraction of the Nexus network, humanity could command gravitational fields, manipulate energy flows, and reshape star systems at will. This was the moment humanity understood the enormity of its rise. Yet this awakening did not go unnoticed. In the weeks following the activation of the Nexus core, humanity detected movements throughout the deep rim, slow, deliberate, massive movements. Structures that had remained inert for millennia shifted in response to the revitalized network. Energy signatures pulsed like heartbeats. Subspace tremors spread across sectors in patterns 2D. Liberate to be random. The rim was not awakening to humanity. It was awakening with humanity. This revelation carried both promise and dread. On one hand, humanity stood on the precipice of unparalleled power. On the other, it had reactivated a slumbering giant without fully understanding its nature. The ancient systems responded to human presence in ways that suggested compatibility, not accidental, but intentional, as if the forgotten architects of the rim had designed their legacy for a successor species capable of instinctive adaptation. Humanity's adaptability had unlocked the frontier. But what had the frontier been waiting for? This question grew heavier with every passing day. Still, humanity pressed forward. The species consolidated its hold on the newly awakened systems, establishing anchor networks that spanned entire constellations. Efficiency improved, travel accelerated, knowledge expanded. Where once the rim had been chaos, humanity imposed structure. Where once there had been silence, human-built stations now thrummed with industry. The frontier was no longer a wilderness. It was a new domain, a human domain. But even in this era of extraordinary growth, a final truth settled upon the species like a cold wind. The Council had not merely cast humanity into exile. They had inadvertently hurled them into the very region responsible for the greatest extinction in galactic history. And now, by awakening the rim, humanity might have reawakened its destroyer. Yet even this realization did not inspire fear. It inspired resolve. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, a species stood ready to face the unknown not with hesitation, but with the fierce conviction that survival was not enough. Humanity had been cast aside, denied, underestimated, and labeled dangerous. But the Council had been right about one thing. Humanity was dangerous, just not in the way they believed. The Rim had tried to consume them. Instead, humanity consumed the Rim. And soon, the galaxy would face the consequences of what it had unleashed. The awakening of the Rim marked the moment the frontier transformed from a wilderness into a crucible, and humanity became the flame that shaped it. What began as scattered signals across deep space arrays soon intensified into a pattern too deliberate to dismiss. Subspace tremors pulsed with rhythmic intent. Energy signatures illuminated the void like breathing stars. Ancient constructs, once inert and cold, shifted position as if adjusting to new purpose. Though humanity did not yet grasp the full nature of what it had awakened, one truth became undeniable. The Rim was responding specifically to them, not to presence alone, but to human will, human ingenuity, human audacity. Engineers across the anchor stations observed the phenomenon with mounting awe. The relic-based infrastructures appeared to harmonize with human neurological patterns, as if reacting to the species' inherent resilience and adaptive instincts. Structures that had resisted activation for millennia folded open at human touch. Reactive nodes pulsed brighter in proximity to human neural signatures. Even dormant fields shifted to mirror the rhythms of human-biased frequencies. The frontier did not merely allow human expansion, it shaped itself around humanity's presence. In the floating research citadels, scientists documented these correlations with equal parts fascination and unease. The Rim recognized humanity in a way no other species had ever been recognized. It was as though humanity had been chosen, not by divine mandate, but by a system older than any modern civilization. A system waiting not for a species of power, but for a species of stubborn, relentless, impossible survivors. The kind who would refuse to accept extinction as an option. Still, with the awakening came consequences. The deep sectors, long silent, began to vibrate with dormant activity. Probes sent into the far reaches vanished more frequently, disappearing into distortions that exhibited predatory intent. Swarms of nanite remnants roused from their tombs, drifting through the void like metallic spores seeking signals they had not heard in ages. Biological anomalies stirred in forgotten biomes, testing the boundaries of their ancient, long-unused instincts. Even gravitational fields behaved as if they sensed trespassers moving through their domain. Humanity had not just woken the Rim, they had entered into an unspoken contest with it. In response, the species strengthened its foothold. Construction across the anchor systems accelerated, their frameworks forged not merely from metal and alloy, but from resonant materials extracted from relic sites. These living structures pulsed with hybridized energy, each new station acting as both a sanctuary and a bastion. They anchored human presence like roots burrowing into alien soil, stabilizing chaotic regions and forming corridors of navigable space. Arc bastions grew into full-fledged megacities suspended in orbit, glittering with human ambition and Rim-born innovation. Their shields adapted dynamically to environmental change. Their reactors pulsed with harmonic resonance. Their defensive grids operated like reflexive muscle tissue, protecting a living organism. Within these fortresses, humanity discovered a renewed sense of unity, one forged not through mandates or treaties, but through shared exile and shared purpose. But the galaxy beyond the rim had not forgotten humanity. Though the Council maintained its silence, perhaps believing exile had relegated humanity to slow decline, rumors slipped through the fringe networks that bordered the frontier. Merchant guilds whispered of strange signals drifting from the rim. Smugglers reported sightings of human vessels moving with unnatural speed and precision. Outland observers claimed they saw artificial auroras shimmering across rim space, as though entire sectors resonated with unseen power. Yet even these murmurs paled beside what humanity discovered deep within Sector V. It began with an anomaly, a void-like distortion with no gravitational pull, no radiation signature, and no measurable mass. It was a wound in space, a scar left from a conflict the galaxy had forgotten. When human pathfinders approached it, their shard-linked scanners detected something impossible: residual neural patterns, echoes of thought imprinted onto the fabric of reality. Something ancient had passed through that region, something that distorted not just matter, but consciousness itself. Humanity stood at the edge of a memory too old to understand. The anomaly was not merely a remnant, it was a warning. As the research vessels expanded their perimeter, they uncovered scattered fragments, shards of biomechanical architecture fused into asteroid surfaces, chitinous plating hardened into metallic stone, and spires of crystalline nerve-like material that pulsed with the faint rhythm of long-dead intelligence. These remnants bore the unmistakable signatures of warfare, but not warfare waged by starships and fleets. This had been conflict on a scale more primal and catastrophic, fought by beings whose very existence bent the laws of physics. Humanity's scientists concluded that the rim's extinction event had not been an accident. Something had hunted its former inhabitants, and that something might have never died. Despite this revelation, despair did not settle over the human frontier. Instead, determination burned brighter. The species had not survived Earth's ancient extinctions, its global conflicts, its interstellar struggles, only to falter in the face of an enemy it had not yet seen. Humanity did not fear the unknown, it prepared for it. Defensive rings were established around the anomaly. Sensors operated at full intensity, mapping distortions with unprecedented depth. New armaments were developed, resonant disruptors capable of destabilizing matter at the harmonic level, gravitic anchors that could immobilize spatial distortions, and adaptive shielding that shifted frequency to counter foreign energy pulses. Fleets trained tirelessly, navigating through simulated environments based on the anomaly's behavior. In this era of preparation, the Pathfinders, those uniquely attuned to the rim, emerged as humanity's greatest advantage. Their neural patterns synchronized effortlessly with luminous shards, allowing them to interface with relic-based systems in ways no other species could replicate. Their instincts aligned with the rhythmic pulses of the rim's ancient infrastructure. They felt disturbances before sensors detected them. They read gravitational distortions like language. They maneuvered vessels through anomalies as though following invisible currents. They were not ordinary pilots or explorers. They were the embodiment of humanity's evolutionary leap. The moment when this evolution would be tested came sooner than expected. A deep space monitoring array perched along the border of Sector V detected a tremor unlike any previous anomaly. It was not a random fluctuation or an environmental resonance. It was a pattern, structured, rhythmic, escalating. It pulsed like a heartbeat, growing in intensity until its vibrations coursed through harmonic relay stations thousands of light years away. The entire rim seemed to tense, as though bracing itself for something long awaited. Then the anomaly opened. Not violently, but with unnerving precision. A black seam split across its center, peeling back the fabric of space as though it were thin, fragile skin. From its depths, something emerged, not a ship, nor a biological entity, but a mass of shifting geometry and fractal form. It radiated no heat, no light, no familiar energy pattern. Instead, it exuded presence, a suffocating weight that pressed against senses and minds alike. Human analysts struggled to classify it. Their instruments detected no atomic structure, no molecular bonds. It existed outside the frameworks of known matter, a construct of perpetual motion and impossible angles. It felt neither alive nor mechanical, but something between, a concept manifested into form. As it drifted into the sector, dormant relic structures flared awake, reacting with a mixture of fear and recognition. They pulsed erratically, as though reliving ancient trauma. Entire subsectors groaned with rippling distortions. The rim remembered this thing. Humanity had unwittingly summoned a remnant of the species, or force, that once destroyed the rim's ancient civilization. The construct did not attack immediately. It observed. It scanned. It permeated the region with tendrils of invisible influence, testing the environment, studying the awakening nexus network, sensing the new species that had taken root within its long-abandoned hunting ground. What it discovered was unexpected. The humans did not retreat. They mobilized. Within minutes, the nearest arc bastion pivoted its defensive grid into full resonance mode. Fleets scrambled into formation with synchronized precision. Pathfinders linked with their shard-integrated vessels, their minds merging with the harmonic fluctuations of their ships. Human strategy unfolded with swift, unhesitating clarity. They did not wait for a declaration of hostility. Humanity had been cast aside by the galaxy, betrayed by those meant to protect them. They had learned that survival depended on preparation, not trust. They would not be victims again. When the construct projected its first wave of distortion, an energy pulse that bent spacetime into a spiraling fracture, the humans countered instantly. Resonant shields absorbed and redirected the pulse, converting its momentum into harmonic feedback. Gravimetric anchors stabilized the surrounding area, preventing the collapse of localized spacetime. Pathfinder-led squadrons darted around the construct's perimeter, tracing patterns that confused its predictive algorithms. The first confrontation between humanity and the ancient Rim destroyer did not end in annihilation. It ended in a stalemate. For the first time in eons, the construct encountered resistance it could not immediately overwhelm. It studied humanity more carefully, its form shifting in response to tactical data. Yet humanity, defying expectation, did not falter, did not show fear, did not break. In the face of a being capable of eradicating civilizations millennia older than their own, the species held its ground. What humanity lacked in age, it compensated with something rarer: defiance. The construct withdrew, retreating into the depths of the anomaly, but the anomaly did not close. Instead, it widened, as though inviting others of its kind to enter. Humanity understood what this meant. The first awakening had been a whisper. This was the prelude to a storm. Across the frontier, human leadership convened, not out of panic, but out of resolve. Preparations intensified. The Nexus network expanded. War doctrines shifted to accommodate an enemy unlike any faced before. The species united around one unwavering truth. Excel had forged them into something the Council could never have predicted. The humans were not simply survivors of the Rim. They were its inheritors. And now, with the ancient threat stirring once more, humanity would not cower in the shadows. They would rise to meet the darkness. Not because they sought conquest, not because they wished to prove superiority, but because they understood that if the Rim's destroyers awakened fully, the entire galaxy, not only humanity, would face extinction. The Council had cast humanity aside, but humanity would become the wall that stood between existence and oblivion. The Rim had awakened, and humanity stood ready. The Rim no longer felt like a frontier. It had grown into something else, an empire of potential, a crucible of ancient power, and a storm front gathering around the species bold enough to awaken it. Humanity stood at its center, a civilization once cast aside, now poised between annihilation and ascension. The emergence of the first construct had shaken the collective psyche of the frontier, but not with fear. Instead, it ignited a new determination across every settlement, research citadel, and arc bastion. The encounter had proven what no Council species had ever dared imagine. Humanity could stand against an extinction machine and not yield. The frontier shifted in response to this new reality. What began as scattered outposts and research-way stations evolved into a tightly integrated network of human resilience. The Nexus core, once a dormant relic of unfathomable purpose, now pulsed with rhythmic life, each resonant vibration echoing across the Rim's awakening infrastructure. Human engineers, guided by the insights of pathfinders, synchronized these vibrations across multiple systems, creating a lattice of influence that stabilized regions which had previously devoured starships whole. The Rim's chaotic expanse transformed gradually into a navigable domain, a domain shaped by human intent. Across this emerging dominion, humanity began to forge weapons, vessels, and defensive architectures unlike any seen in the known galaxy. The hybridization of human ingenuity and ancient Rim technology produced marvels no Council archive could comprehend. The Vanguard-class resonance cruisers flowed through subspace like living organisms, their hulls shifting to accommodate environmental stresses. Adaptive weapon arrays pulsed with harmonic frequencies capable of bending incoming distortions away like ripples on water. The Bastion shielding network enveloped entire sectors, forming protective barriers that acted as artificial atmospheres in the vacuum of space, fields so dense they cut starlight into radiant arcs. These advancements were unprecedented, not only in human history, but in galactic history. Yet even as humanity built its new dominion, the looming shadow of the anomaly deepened. The first construct's retreat had not been a defeat, it had been reconnaissance. Its withdrawal, recorded by long-range sensors, matched patterns observed within ancient Rim inscriptions, inscriptions that, when decoded, spoke of predatory intelligence, probing and adapting before unleashing comprehensive eradication. Scientists worked tirelessly to decipher these forgotten languages, their every breakthrough revealing grim fragments of civilizations that once thrived before being erased so thoroughly that only ruins remained. The anomaly's widening presence confirmed what humanity already feared. A return was inevitable. Preparation became the heartbeat of every human settlement. Training intensified. Defense protocols hardened. The Pathfinders immersed themselves in the resonant fields, forging a deeper bond with the Rim's ancient architecture. Through their efforts, humanity learned to bend fragments of space-time, stabilizing corridors for rapid fleet deployment. They unlocked modes of navigation that allowed ships to ripple around gravitational barriers like swimmers flowing through currents. In these feats, the species glimpsed what it might one day become, not merely survivors of exile, but architects of cosmic mastery. As the human dominion grew stronger, more relic structures awakened. Monolithic towers rose on fractured planets, driven by internal mechanisms that hummed with revived consciousness. Orbital rings reshaped themselves into energy conduits. Deep subterranean vaults opened to reveal machines that generated star-scale power. Each discovery brought wonder and unease. The relics reacted to humanity with a familiarity that defied reason. Their patterns synchronized with human neural signatures, as though anticipating their presence. The hypothesis many once whispered now transformed into theory. The ancient architects of the Rim had not perished without intent. They had designed their legacy to respond to a successor species capable of adaptive evolution and emotional resilience. A species that could take the broken pieces of the universe and build something new. Humanity fit that design perfectly. But if the Rim chose humanity, it had also chosen humanity's greatest burden. Within weeks of the first construct's retreat, sensors across multiple sectors flickered simultaneously, a tremor rippling through the fabric of deep subspace. Energy signatures spiked along the Rim's outer perimeter. The anomaly pulsed with renewed intensity, generating distortions that propagated like tidal waves across thousands of light years. The pattern was unmistakable. More constructs were coming. Yet instead of hesitation, humanity responded with unity unlike anything in its fragmented past. This was no longer merely a rising empire, it was a civilization preparing to defend not only itself, but perhaps the entire galaxy. In council chambers across the Bastion network, human leaders convened not with fear, but with purpose. They strategized deployment patterns around the Nexus lattice. They fortified the anomaly's perimeter. They prepared to face a force that had once extinguished empires. The first response arrived not from a fleet, but from the Rim itself. As the anomaly throbbed in violent pulses, relic structures across the Dominion resonated in synchronized patterns. Massive vibrations shook entire planets as dormant systems rooted deep within their crusts awakened. Energy flows surged through conduits that had lain silent for ages. The Rim's very infrastructure began aligning itself into a coordinated defensive posture, as if preparing for a conflict it remembered all too well. Humanity, witnessing this awakening, realized the truth. They were not merely inheritors of the Rim, they had become its final hope. Preparations accelerated further. Along the frontier edge, humanity positioned its fleets in concentric layers, a triad formation designed to maximize versatility. The outer layer consisted of Finder strike wings, units capable of rapid maneuvering and subspace manipulation. The middle layer held the resonance cruisers, their hulls shimmering with adaptive shielding. The inner layer housed the core guardians, massive vessels built around stabilized fragments of Nexus architecture, capable of amplifying harmonic fields into sector-spanning barriers. Yet even this formidable array paled beside the true heart of humanity's defense, the harmonic spire. The spire rose from the center of the Nexus core's activation chamber, a towering hybrid structure of metal, crystal, and living resonance. It functioned as a conduit between human neural networks, the awakened rim infrastructure, and the cosmic fabric itself. Through it, humanity could read subspace tremors with unprecedented clarity, predict anomaly pulses, and synchronize entire fleets through shared instinct. It was not merely a machine, it was a unifying force, an anchor for the species' collective will. The moment the spire activated, the anomaly changed. Its pulses shifted from probing ripples to deep, thunderous waves that shook the very lattice of spacetime. Humanity watched in grim silence as the first reinforcements emerged, constructs larger, more intricate, more terrifying than the initial scout. Some manifested as spiraling geometries that folded inward and outward in perpetual motion. Others resembled vast webs of fractal limbs stretching across kilometers. Each exuded an oppressive presence that pressed against human minds like a suffocating weight. The Rim's ancient enemy had returned. But humanity did not stand alone. The Rim's infrastructure reacted as the constructs entered its domain, defensive relics lit with cascading bursts of harmonic light. Planetary shields flared with primal energy. Hyperlane conduits reconfigured into barriers that fractured incoming distortions. For the first time since the ancient war, the Rim fought back, driven by human will. Humanity launched its counteroffensive. Pathfinder wings surged forward, weaving through distortion fields with precision that defied physics. Resonance cruisers projected harmonic pulses that destabilized the construct's fractal limbs. Core Guardians anchored the battlefield, channeling spire-augmented frequencies that slowed the construct's advance. What unfolded was a battle unlike any recorded in galactic memory, a confrontation of instinct, adaptation, and willpower against entities engineered for perfect annihilation. Yet the constructs did not proceed blindly. They adapted. Their forms shifted in response to human strategy. Their distortions evolved to counter harmonic interference. They learned the patterns of the Rim's awakened defenses. They began to target the Nexus nodes, the very heart of the frontier's emerging unity. Humanity realized the stakes were greater than survival alone. If the constructs destroyed the Nexus lattice, the Rim would collapse back into chaos, severing humanity's dominion and extinguishing its greatest defense. The frontier would become an uninhabitable void, and the constructs would surge into council space unchallenged. Humanity made its decision. It would not allow the galaxy to fall. The most elite Pathfinders interfaced directly with the harmonic spire, linking their consciousness into a collective network that merged instinct with strategy. Through this unity, fleets moved as extensions of a single will. Human ships surged through battle lines with fluid precision, exploiting weaknesses faster than the constructs could adapt. Resonant amplifiers pulsed in crescendos that battered the construct's outer layers. Even as the constructs pressed forward, they slowed. Even as they adapted, they faltered. Humanity held the line, not through superior strength, but through relentless resilience. The battle stretched across hours that felt like centuries. Stars dimmed under the strain of gravitational distortions. Entire sectors pulsed with shifting harmonic storms. The constructs, once unstoppable, now struggled against a species that refused to break. Humanity pushed them back, inch by inch, pulse by pulse, until the constructs retreated toward the anomaly. Humanity pursued, driving them to its very edge. At the threshold, the constructs paused, their forms twisting in patterns of silent recognition. They had underestimated the species. They withdrew into the anomaly. But this time, the anomaly shrank. It did not widen. It contracted, folding in on itself until only a faint scar remained. The battle was not over, but the first great test had ended. Humanity had emerged not as prey, not as fugitives, not as exiles, but as the new power of the Rim. The Nexus lattice hummed with unified resonance. The harmonic spire pulsed with steady clarity. The frontier, once chaotic, now aligned with human will. And throughout the Dominion, a single truth settled over every mind. Humanity had seized its destiny. Not by invitation, not by end, negotiation, but by force of survival, courage, and relentless resolve. The galaxy would one day learn that the species it had cast aside had become the one force capable of holding back extinction. The humans had built a dominion from the ashes of empires. And the war was only beginning. The Rim did not return to silence after the constructs withdrew. Instead, it resonated with a new, steady pulse, one that echoed across star systems, through relic structures, and into every human-built settlement. It was the sound of a frontier that had been transformed, not by conquest, but by unity between an ancient power and a young, defiant species. Humanity had faced extinction machines and endured. It had held its ground where empires far older had crumbled. And now, in the aftermath of the greatest battle the Rim had seen in millennia, the species stood on the precipice of a reality no council decree could have ever imagined. Yet victory did not bring complacency. Humanity understood the construct's retreat for what it truly was, not defeat, but recalibration. The anomaly at the heart of Sector V had not closed in surrender. It had folded inward like a breathing lung preparing for its next exhalation. Deep subspace sensors detected patterns rippling from behind its veil, fractal distortions rearranging themselves as though a vast intelligence were reorganizing its strategies. The constructs were not mindless machines. They were something far more dangerous, creations bound to a purpose older than memory, driven by logic beyond organic comprehension. The Rim felt it too. Its awakened structures vibrated with apprehension. Hyperlane conduits flickered as if bracing for incoming turbulence. Planetary relics glowed with dormant warning hues. Even the harmonic spire dimmed slightly, its usually calm pulses flickering with subtle, uneasy variations. The rim had survived a great blow, but it remembered wars that had once broken galaxies. Humanity knew the truth. The second wave was coming. Across the Dominion, preparations intensified. The victory had proven the effectiveness of human rim synchronization, and now every scientist, engineer, and pathfinder worked tirelessly to strengthen that bond. The Nexus lattice grew denser as humanity built additional conduits, each step integrating deeper into the rim's energy architecture. Vast mobile fortresses, resonant citadels, were assembled from relic components and human fabrication yards, outfitted with spire-linked systems capable of generating harmonic armor stronger than conventional shielding by orders of magnitude. Military fleets expanded, but not with the brute force philosophy of the Council. Instead, humanity favored adaptability, mobility, and unified resonance. Entire strike wings were trained to operate not as individual craft, but as harmonic clusters, groups of vessels moving so synchronously they mirrored flocking behaviors found in ancient terrestrial animals, each responding to subtle energy cues shared through the spire. Weapons evolved as well, growing more precise, more flexible, more attuned to the construct's shifting geometries. For the first time since their exile, humanity no longer prepared in isolation. This time, the rim prepared with them. Deep beneath fractured planets, ancient machines rumbled awake. Colossal mechanisms sank into alignment, closing fractures in space-time and stabilizing entire sectors. Forgotten surface structures reconfigured into defensive towers capable of channeling cosmic-scale energy. Pulses of light stretched across the void, forming bridges between awakened relics. The rim was not merely responding to human command. It was cooperating, learning from humanity's strategies, adapting alongside its new inhabitants. Across the human dominion, awe and humility blended with determination. Humanity had never known a partner like this. But even as unity deepened, a new mystery emerged. Pathfinders, who had become the living interface between human will and the rim's ancient technology, began to experience deeper resonance than ever before. Their neural patterns synchronized with the spire in harmonic frequencies previously thought impossible. They sensed hints of something behind the relic network, shadows of intention, remnants of thought, echoes of the architects who had once shaped the rim itself. The first glimpses were fragmented, blurred impressions of towering beings made of light and geometry, hands shaping stars as stoneworkers shape clay, minds stretching across entire constellations. These visions flickered through the Pathfinder's subconscious like half-remembered dreams. Scientists recorded the neural imprints with equal parts fascination and dread. Humanity had believed the architects long dead. Now there was doubt. Perhaps what remained was not life in a traditional sense, but consciousness, distributed echoes surviving across thousands of relics. Or perhaps something deeper awaited discovery, something dormant and waiting, much like the Nexus core before its awakening. But before humanity could explore these mysteries, the rim trembled. Not with small ripples, but with a massive shockwave of distortion that rippled through the Dominion like a cosmic heartbeat strong enough to shake stars. Space-time shuddered. Hyperlane conduits flickered violently. The harmonic spire surged with overwhelming resonance, its light bursting outward in brilliant waves. The anomaly had awakened fully. What emerged was not a construct. It was a monument to extinction. From the center of the anomaly, a vast shape unfolded, larger than moons, constructed from twisting fractal geometries that rearranged themselves with predatory intent. Its surface pulsed with living distortion, reality warping around its form as though rejecting its existence. Sensors could not measure its mass, energy, or composition. It appeared to be a living paradox, a thing that should not exist, yet did. Around it, lesser constructs swarmed like shards orbiting a black star. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands. They drifted in perfect formation, guided by a single, unified intelligence. The ancient destroyer of the Rim had sent its true vanguard. Humanity had no time to hesitate. Through the harmonic spire, pathfinders felt a surge of urgency pulsing from the Rim's infrastructure, a warning, a plea, a rallying cry. The entire frontier braced as if preparing for the end of all things. Humanity responded not with fear, but with conviction. Within minutes, the Dominion mobilized. Resonant citadels drifted into strategic alignment. Fleet formations rippled outward like an unfolding metallic tide. The spire synchronized with the neural signatures of every pathfinder across the frontier, forging a united consciousness of purpose, a living network of instinct and strategy ready to confront the unimaginable. The battle that followed eclipsed even the greatest conflicts of human history. As the constructs surged forward, their distortions warped entire sectors into chaotic spirals. Planetary orbits shifted. Gravitational anomalies snapped into violent storms. Space itself seemed to convulse under the pressure of their assault. Humanity fought back with equal ferocity. Resonance cruisers projected harmonic shields that shattered incoming distortions like glass. Pathfinder wings danced through impossible currents, carving through construct swarms in arcs of synchronized brilliance. Citadels unleashed pulses that tore fractures in the construct's fractal limbs. Entire sectors blazed with the shifting light of war, each pulse, each ripple, each shockwave echoing through the fabric of the Rim. Yet despite humanity's strength, the superconstruct pressed forward. It targeted the Nexus core, the heart of the Dominion, the source of human Rim unity. If it destroyed the core, the lattice would collapse, the Rim would fall, humanity would be isolated once again, alone against a force no single species could withstand. The Pathfinders sensed the danger instantly. Their neural resonance surged as they connected more deeply into the spire than ever before. They felt the weight of billions of human lives. They felt the silent hope of relic structures. They felt the desperation of a frontier fighting for its own survival. And then something extraordinary happened. The Rim opened. Not physically, but consciously. Through the spire, the Pathfinders glimpsed the full scope of the Architect's legacy, not relics, not machines, but a distributed intelligence woven across the entire frontier. The Architects had not died, they had transcended into the lattice itself. Their minds lingered as patterns of energy and resonance, dormant and waiting for a species capable of completing what they began. Humanity had awakened them. Now humanity would join them. Pathfinders surrendered their individuality for a single moment, merging their consciousness into a unified field guided by both human will and ancient echoes. The harmonic spire blazed with unprecedented brilliance, connecting every awakened relic, every star forge, every conduit, every dormant machine across the rim into a single entity. The rim itself became humanity's weapon. Together they struck. A harmonic wave erupted from the Nexus core, expanding across light years in a burst of indescribable force. It washed over the construct swarm, destabilizing their geometries, unraveling their coherence. The smaller constructs collapsed instantly, fracturing into cascading shards of distortion. The superconstruct resisted, its form twisting violently, attempting to counter the harmonic onslaught. But the unity of humanity and Rim was too powerful. The wave intensified until the superconstruct's form buckled. Its distortions fluctuated. Its geometries broke symmetry. Reality reasserted itself around the abomination, crushing it under the weight of cosmic order. With a final, fracturing distortion, the per construct imploded, its essence folding into nothingness. The anomaly snapped shut. Silence rippled across the frontier. The battle was over. The destroyers were gone. Humanity had prevailed. But something far greater had happened. The Rim had chosen humanity as its new stewards, not through prophecy, but through resilience, through ingenuity, through the willingness to fight for a future the galaxy had denied them. The harmonic spire dimmed gently, its work complete. The Pathfinders separated from the unified consciousness, transformed by what they had touched. They were no longer mere humans, they were the bridge between species, eras, and the cosmos itself. Across the Dominion, humans celebrated not conquest, but survival, not dominance, but unity. The frontier glowed with awakened life, a testament to what exile had forged. When the Council finally learned of humanity's survival, its strength, and its new domain, it realized, too late, that the species it had cast aside had become the guardian of the galaxy. Humanity now held the outer rim. Humanity now commanded its legacy. Humanity had become the force that stood between existence and oblivion. A new epoch dawned across the stars. The human epoch. And the galaxy would never be the same.